So yesterday I made a video about the Atiku and Tinubu subsidy issue. And I said something. I said the fuel subsidy removal has made life unbearably hard for ordinary Nigerians and that the people cannot feel the benefit from it. And the response I got was something I've never experienced on this channel before. Insults, people saying they've unfollowed me, people saying they thought I had sense, but the video proved I don't. APC supporters telling me I'm now an Atiku supporter. So let me address that first. And then I want to take you on a journey of how the numbers look, because this conversation deserves facts and not feelings. Now, to everyone who disagreed respectfully, I genuinely appreciate you. Disagreement is healthy. You cannot agree with your siblings on everything. You don't agree with your parents on everything. You were never going to agree with me on everything. That's fine, and that's how it should work. But to those who came with insults, I want you to stay on this video. Not because I'm angry, but because what I'm about to show you deserves your full attention. Now, first, let me be clear about who I am and what I stand for on this channel. I have never been an Atiku Abubakar fan. I have said it clearly and repeatedly that my days of believing in Nigerian politicians are over. I don't believe in Atiku, I don't believe in Peter Obi, I don't believe in Tinubu, but I will always comment on their policies. That is what this channel does. And if you've been here long enough, you know that. And here's something else you should know. I used to support subsidy removal. I believed it was the right economic decision. I have said it publicly, especially on Twitter. But after watching what it has done to the lives of ordinary Nigerians for 3 years, without any meaningful relief, without any credible alternative support system, I've changed my mind. And I make no apology for that. Changing your mind when faced with new evidence is not weakness. It is intelligence. Now, let me ask you a question that I need you to really sit with and think about carefully. Was fuel subsidy actually ever removed? Because if you look at the numbers, and I mean the actual audited financial statements, not government press releases, the answer is deeply disturbing. Now, NNPC's 2024 consolidated financial statements, audited and certified by PwC, SIAO, and Mutari Dangana and Co., shows that the Federation's total obligations to NNPC have risen to approximately 17.5 trillion naira. The breakdown goes like this. 7.13 trillion naira categorized as energy security expense, 8.67 trillion labeled as under recovery, and 8.84 trillion grouped under other receivables from the Federation. These are not opposition figures. These are not numbers I invented. These are NNPC's own audited financial statements certified by their own auditors. Now, let me explain what these terms actually mean in plain language, because this is where the government has been very clever with language. Under recovery is the shortfall that happens when the real cost of importing or supplying petrol is higher than the price at which it is sold or supplied. In other words, if it costs NNPC 1,200 naira to land a litre of petrol, but it is supplied below that cost, the difference is recorded as under recovery. And the Federation, meaning the federal government, is supposed to cover that gap. Sounds familiar, right? Because it should. That is exactly how the old fuel subsidy worked. Different name, same mechanism, same public money being used to cover the gap between the real cost of fuel and what is charged. Now, NNPC's audited financial statements shows energy security expenses of 4.84 trillion naira in 2023, 7.13 trillion naira in 2024, and 8.67 trillion naira in 2025. Totaling over 20.64 trillion naira across 3 years. 3 years after subsidy was declared gone. Now, as former Nasima president Dele Oye puts it, the subsidy did not vanish, it metamorphosed. And that, tragically, is the most expensive word game in Nigerian history. So here is the question I want every person who insulted me yesterday to answer honestly. The government told us subsidy was gone. Nigerians were told to endure the pain. Fuel went from 200 to 1,300. Transportation costs tripled. Food prices exploded. Businesses collapsed. Families have been eating once a day. And behind the scenes, NNPC's own 2024 financial statements shows continued under-recovery costs borne by NNPC and charged to the federal government under Section 64M of the Petroleum Industry Act, which analysts says marks the true cost of fuel pricing and is effectively a continuation of subsidy under a different name. We were made to suffer for a removal that, by NNPC's own numbers, may not have fully happened. Now, the government subsidy removal generated 15.8 trillion naira in savings for the Federation between June 2023 and December 2025. They say this was shared between the federal government, states, and local governments, with states and local governments taking the largest share of 10.4 trillion naira. And I want to ask the most important question about that. How has the life of the ordinary Nigerian changed? You took away the one thing that was keeping fuel somewhat affordable for 200 million people. You freed up 15.8 trillion naira and shared it to governors and local government chairmen. In a country where we know governors own their LGAs. In a country where we have watched local government funds disappear into state government accounts for decades. In a country where accountability at the subnational level is practically non-existent. And the ordinary Nigerian at the bus stop, at the markets, in the classroom, on the farm is supposed to have felt that 10.4 trillion naira. How exactly? Some people are telling me this is a necessary pain, that Nigerians need to endure short-term suffering for long-term growth. Let me remind you of something. When Buhari came in, he banned rice importation through land borders, restricted forex for importers, and hiked import duties to 70%. Nigerians were told this was necessary to grow local production. Rice became unbearably expensive. We endured it for years. We were told growth was coming. Then Tinubu came in and removed all those restrictions, reduced the import duty from 70% to 47%, and Nigerians felt some relief. But all those years of sacrifice, the pain people endured, the businesses that collapsed, the families that suffered through expensive rice for years, all of that was wasted because the next government simply reversed it. Now we are in the same circle with fuel subsidy. How long before the next government reverses this too? And what exactly will all this suffering produce, for the ordinary Nigerians in the meantime? And one more thing I want to say directly to those who think this is about Atiku. I've been clear. Atiku was himself a proponent of subsidy removal before 2023. He supported it. He campaigned on it. The fact that he's now proposing a restructured model could be genuine conviction or could be a political positioning. Both are possible. Both can be true simultaneously. But what Atiku is proposing is not a return of the old corrupt import-based subsidy. His model proposes subsidizing Nigerian refineries at the production level, tracked barrel by barrel, independently audited, capped within the budget, and designed to benefit consumers through lower pump prices rather than enriching importers and middlemen. Is it perfect? No policy is perfect. But is it an idea worth serious discussions instead of being, dismissed as ignorance? Absolutely yes. Now, I'll end with this. I used to be obsessed with paper economics, GDP numbers, microeconomic indicators, balance of payments. I believed if the numbers looked good on paper, the policy was working. I no longer believe that. Not because I don't understand economics, but because I understand something more important. You are governing human beings, not spreadsheets, not economic models. People who wake up every morning and make impossible choices between eating and transporting themselves to work. People whose children have dropped out of school because fees have tripled. People who are working harder than they have ever worked in their lives and failing further and further behind. Nigeria has the highest number of people living in extreme poverty of any country on earth. Any economic policy that cannot demonstrate a clear, tangible improvement in the lives of these people is a policy that is failing, regardless of what the paper says. That is not ignorance. That is governance. And no amount of insults in my comment section would change that position. If you unfollowed me, I wish you well. My conscience is not for sale, and my opinion is not for rent. This is Mr. Abdul reacts.